the Cytec nutrition company. You know the Cytec?
Yep.
Used to work for them. Cytec Nutrition, and every single social media, every single platform you can gather information from, that's Cytec. That's all Cytec. You know, they have the biggest website, they have the biggest YouTube channel, all that stuff from the Cytec. Now, the thing is, if the information is coming from a supplement company, that will be biased right there.
100%.
Yes. And it's not just that, but it's also, it almost feels like Hungary is stuck in time 20 years back. Like, they still talking about insulin makes you fat, carbs makes you fat, all these kind of nonsense. No one actually talks about science. No one ever shows a study in Hungary. That studies and for example, PubMed studies or whatever, no one even heard of these stuff in Hungary. So I thought, because I've been living in the UK for over a decade now, and I did, you know, all the education and stuff like that in coaching. Therefore, my knowledge is based on that. Of course, I started working out 23 years ago. So basically, I still have the bro science in me. But it took me 10 years to get rid of that completely. So now the purpose of this channel is basically it's going against bro science. That's the whole purpose. And that's why I thought it would be quite nice to introduce international experts in specific fields, like Broderick Chavez. I really like him when it comes to PEDs, because he can explain very complex stuff in simple words. I like that. Dr. Dean, I don't know if you know him. He's in the UK. He's really good in explaining TRTs and hormones and stuff like that. Same goes, I had a chat with him. Librist is funny because he's not an expert in any field, but he's so simple and yet still funny that if you think about that, everything he says is actually being backed up by science now. You know, when it comes to bulking, obviously when he talks about other stuff, that might not be true, but that's why I called him just to talk about bulking, just off season, because he was really good on that. I actually like his approach, you know, living the life, enjoying the food. And then when it comes to diet, that's when you need to be on the diet, not all year round. I like that idea. Milos will be obviously insulin. That's for sure.
Of course. Yeah.
And then, because I don't want to talk about stuff, it's not my expertise. I'm never going to talk about PEDs. I'm not a freaking doctor. So I want a doctor to be on my channel to talk about that, or at least someone who's close to that. Now, when it comes to you, the other field I'm not confident to talk about is micronutrients and coaching, obviously. So I want to learn as well. And also, I want to ask you not to go into crazy details, because think about that, what I just said, people won't understand. That was the problem with Dr. Dean. When I called him, and simple question, what supplements can you take to improve your sleep quality? That was one question. He went into so crazy details about neuroscience and shit like that. For him, it was crazy simple. But for us, even I didn't understand, and I've been studying this for 20 years. So that was complex. Yes. So yes, I know, you know, the fructose question as well. That's a huge misunderstanding about fructose in general. So people are afraid to eat fucking fruits, and that kills me. You know, that's what I want to actually get out of this chat, that I know it's complex. I know every single question can be way more detailed, but I just want to spend maybe, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes on each question. So I want to go through these.
Okay. Yeah. So in other words, more layman's terms, so the general population can understand what the answer is and have it be usable for the individual.
Yes, correct. Because I want to know the detailed answer. Yes, of course I want, but no one else will understand that. That's the issue. So I want everyone to understand what we just gonna talk about. Okay. And of course, before we start, but I might just gonna leave this in anyway. I just want to thank you everything you've done in the past 10 years, because this is different. When I called Broderick, for example, or Dr. Dean, I won't call myself a fan because, you know, I've been following them maybe for a year. That's a different story. But I've been following you since the very first video you ever made on the YouTube, which was huge on 50 or huge on 100.
Oh, yeah, huge on 50. Yeah, I think it was 50. It might have been 50, yeah. $50 per week, I think.
Yes, I think that was the first one. And then you've done the series, the Tuttle Diaries.
Yep.
You had that too. I know all that shit, and I honestly think the video helped me the most in my life ever was definitely the huge on 50 and huge on 100, because that was very simple, but yet still people just didn't know this is how simple it is. You just have to go into the grocery store and pick the common sense, choose the food which you actually need, and I really just like that, and that was really, really big help. So I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
That was really good. So basically, if you're ready, I'm just gonna go into the first question.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Ready to roll.
Okay. So as far as I remember, I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when you did all those videos back for 6, 7, 8 years ago, you were still working in a hospital settings as a dietitian.
That is correct.
Correct. So the first question is, what is the difference? What is the role? What is the exact role of a dietitian as a coach? Because people don't know that we're talking about two different things. So when it comes to meal plan and planning a meal for someone, putting a meal plan setting together, where is the line between a dietitian and a coach?
So a registered dietitian is really kind of educated and well-versed in what is called medical nutrition therapy. So it's basically research and legitimate studies providing efficacy on nutritional strategies to address certain disease states. That's as simple as I can say it. So obviously, people who have cardiac issues need to deal with cholesterol and triglycerides, people who are controlling diabetes, people with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, looking at the individual's lab work, seeing what they're deficient in, helping them come up with a meal plan to kind of address the issues of the deficiencies they are getting with that disease state. So that's more or less what a dietitian does. We're more monitoring health parameters. People in a nursing home, making sure the individual nursing home's eating, they're not losing their body weight, they're maintaining their body weight, making sure blood glucose is, within normal limits. Implications with food allergies, helping people navigate a proper diet and managing food allergies, how to read nutrition labels and understand their own disease state. Because at the end of the day, there's no dietitian that's going to follow them around, right? So a lot of a hospital setting is education and making sure they understand what to leave the hospital with. But also while we're there, the doctor will call and refer us in there to make sure the diet's appropriate with what is going on with their admission, if it's even nutrition related. But it's a lot of education. And of course, there's very different situations in regarding what floor you're working on, oncology, cardiac, gastric. So they're all going to have different requirements when it comes to nutrition. And of course, if you're in the ICU, you're never talking to the patient. You're dealing with TPNs, parenteral nutrition, making sure and adjusting their labs daily, and making sure they're having enough dextrose, amino acids, monitoring their body weight in their labs, and adjusting those on a daily basis, where you're communicating with the pharmacy and the compounding pharmacy to make sure the next day the TPN bag comes back appropriate for what is changing in their daily lab work. And then being a coach is more or less you're kind of you're not working with that type of population. You're more working with people who are generally already healthy or maintaining health and learning how to manipulate macronutrients and exercise, manage stress and recovery in order to get their body composition a certain level or to look a certain way, or even performance-wise.
The reason I asked this because I'm not sure if you ever heard these terms, because that's actually a made-up word. It doesn't even exist. It's called biohacking. Do you Yeah. I hate that, by the way. And people who does that, who call themselves biohacker or hormone hacker or whatever, they have no education, and they still try to cure people with diabetes and cancer and insulin resistance and stuff like that. So I'm so glad that the way you put this, that people who just a coach or doesn't even have education as a coach, they should never try to treat people with these kind of disease, because that's just not their job. It's wrong. It's bad. It's illegal.
100%. 100%.
And of course,
unfortunately, it still happens. Unfortunately,
it still happens, especially in Hungary. And I know every single country has their own rules about this, but as far as I know, the UK is exactly the same as the USA. So as a dietitian, as you said, you treat people with problems, you treat people with disease. You can give exact meal plan for a certain goal to achieve. And as a coach, you're just working with healthy people towards their physical goals. That's it. Nothing beyond that.
Yeah, that's pretty much true, except people still do in the United States. There's no real national law saying that you can't prescribe nutritional advice. However, there are states that do regulate that by law, but it's not enforced.
Yeah.
You can't be a Joe Schmo off the street with a nutrition background but no education and work in a hospital. If you want to work in dialysis unit, long-term care, outpatient, inpatient, ICU, you need to have a registered dietitian credential next to your name.
Right. Okay. Next one, connect to this. When you design a meal plan as a coach, or when you design a meal plan as a dietitian, what are the differences? So as a coach, can you actually tell people to eat exactly 200 grams of white rice, 135 grams of white fish, or you have to give them macros and calories? So where is the line between these two different professions?
Well, the number one rule in advancing with either recommendation for either group is adherence, because you can give the most optimal plan. If they're not going to follow, it's not going to work. So usually the first thing to do, honestly, with really both, is to do a 72-hour recall of what their habitual diet is, seeing where they are at, seeing what changes you can make and what is sustainable for the individual. If the individual on either side is willing to make a full change and they're really ready to make a change and they're willing to do anything, then the changes might be more extreme from what their habitual diet is. But at the end of the day, it's about realistic and adherence and sustainability over time. That's what's going to guarantee success on that nutritional plan. Now, as far as the difference between obviously two different goals, you're going to be more paying closer attention to specific foods on the disease state to that disease, versus the healthy individual has a much more larger variety of food to choose from, provided it does fit their macros or however you want to calculate or progress from their plan. I personally don't count calories once the calorie amount the first time is calculated. So once I figure out where their calories are, roughly need to start, then I'll get the macros from those calories. And then that's the macros they start with. And I want them worrying about more carb counting and protein counting, kind of like a diabetes exchange list, than worrying about counting every single calorie, because it ends up being tedious for the individual. It's easy for someone to understand that, in the United States, roughly one piece of bread is 15 carbs, 52 grams of rice is 15 carbs, half English muffins, 15 carbs, 100 grams of blueberries, 15 carbs. It's easier for them to be like, that's 15, 15, 15. I need 45, so I need 3 servings. It's easy for people to do that versus like, wait, I need 400 calories in this meal, and then they have to do it that way. And plus, there's all these apps now.
Yes, of course.
Easier. Yeah.
I've been using these apps for like 7 years, and I actually require to use apps as a coach, because otherwise, how would I know what they eat exactly? Because I don't give away an exact gram to gram meal plan. I will ask them, calorie target and then macro targets. So therefore, they just have to use apps. So as a coach, do you ask your clients to use an app, or do you ask them to follow your meal plan word by word?
So it changes on the base of the experience of the individual. I do give them a written meal plan with gram for gram, how many 150 grams of rice, etc. I do that, but I do give them a lot of options so they can exchange. But I really don't want them doing a lot of math or figuring things out, because people tend to start tweaking things constantly. And then all of a sudden something goes by and you're scratching your head. You're like, what is going on here? What's happening? So I want them to stick to the plan. I always tell them, stick to the plan and the portions I give you. Don't worry about counting anything. Just worry about the exchanges if you want to change your meal. And then once we get the ball rolling and we get some good results, then I'll allow you more freedom to do other things, because I ultimately want the individual to succeed and get results. So, I used to do more of that, but I found that I just don't trust people to do the math correctly, or enter it in correctly, or they tend to be worrying about if they're going to make their numbers or not make their numbers, and they're counting everything. I just want it to be as easy as possible for them. Because I think to myself, even myself bodybuilding, I mean, I've prepped myself for shows with never even writing anything down. Like, I just knew that I'm doing 60 grams of carbs per meal, and okay, 60 grams of carbs of this, is this, and I just did it all in here. So like, I want people to eventually be able to do that in yourself, because then it becomes a very easy task to learn how to eat and support your own body weight, whatever goal you want to do.
Yeah, and this actually leads to my next question. It's purely about meal planning, not workout plans at this point. What are the difference? What is the difference, or what are the difference between a Gen Pop client and a competitor client? So just an average Joe and then someone who actually competes. When you design a meal plan, what you actually take into account, what you consider when you design these plans for these different these different groups?
Yeah, so general population obviously has a much more leeway, more liberalization of the plan, a little more freedom to do different things. They have a lot more options. Off season, or obviously contest prep is a whole other animal, but like if somebody has a very specific strict goal, they have less options to start. And obviously in off season, it's all about maximizing digestion and maintaining appetite, protecting sleep, recovery. So it tends to be more regimented. Gaining muscle is not easy. So people need to be on the ball all the time in the off season, just like you'd be on the ball all the time in contest prep to be able to put on that muscle they need. But it's more like these guys are going to have yogurt and granola, and they're going to be eating, even white bagel, light cream cheese. But like somebody in the off season of a bodybuilder eating a lot of dairy, bagels, and cream cheese might really hurt their appetite or their digestion. So it's not really going to maximize that, ease the burden on the digestive system to pack as many calories they need to in order to grow. So it ends up being much different in that sense.
Because I see every single day when someone comes to me and they show me their previous plan from a previous coach, and we're talking about absolutely regular Joe, complete average people, and they have a meal plan saying egg whites and oats, chicken rice, chicken veggies every day. Yeah. No. I wouldn't even do that, even if I was competing. So I think it's just wrong when you mix a general population client with a competitor, because it's a different mindset and a different goal, as you said.
And I got a good thing to end with that. So, my goal when someone hires me who's general population to lose weight is to get them to lose weight, right? And be healthier.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, what people don't understand, if somebody comes to me, they're very obese, they have high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I don't care what the diet is. If they lost 40 pounds, all of that would probably correct itself. So that being said, I had an overweight individual who had those issues. He was a horrendous eater in regards to what he was willing to eat. I dieted him on Doritos, waffles, bacon, everything that's horrible for you. I worked it into his plan and made it work. And for lunch, he was having ham sandwiches and baked Lay's potato chips. But he lost like 65 pounds, something like that, and came off all his meds, and he felt great. But he was still eating what we would call junk food. But at the end of the day, it is about calories, in his situation. So his adherence was great. It's high. If I gave him rice, egg whites, and chicken, he probably would have lasted 3 days and then quit.
Follow the plan, yeah. Exactly. And as you said, even the best plan means nothing if you can't follow it.
100%. That's so over. People don't understand that. And I hate when people say, oh, they just got to tough it out. Yeah, that's not most people. It's just not. There's not a lot of people wired that way who can just be like, special forces, just tough it out. Like, they're not going to. So you have to, being a better coach, you're going to be providing them the plan that's going to give them results and be a sustainable plan.
it's funny enough, just 5 minutes before we started, this video, I explained someone within an hour. It was a 1 hour consultation explaining that, as you said, you don't have to force the food down. Maybe you do have to if you compete within a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, but just to lose 10 pounds of fat, you don't have to eat freaking white fish and brown rice. You just don't have to.
Yeah, definitely not warranted, 100%.
Right, next one. Main differences between coaching a natural guy or a not natural guy, enhanced people. So when you designing a meal plan, still not talking about training, workout, just meal plan. In a meal plan, do you actually take into account if someone is enhanced or not? Does it make any difference?
It's debatable. Generally, it doesn't change all that much, but outside a few points. One, an enhanced athlete, I'm going to be able to get away with a lower fat diet. If somebody's natural, obviously they're going to be reliant on those fat calories and sources for their own hormone production. So you can't just take a natural athlete and bottom out to 30 grams of fat a day in a caloric deficit and be like, oh my God, they're going to feel great. They're going to feel horrible. So I really do try to maintain adequate dietary fat intake in a natural athlete and more or less, believe it or not, use protein and carbs as more what to reduce in calories. I mean, a natural bodybuilder doesn't need to eat 400 grams of protein a day.
Yeah. So
I might even lower their protein if I have to get the calories down to 1 gram per pound of body weight in a natural bodybuilder. In a non-natural, I will also diet them for a longer period of time. The natural bodybuilders, because their likelihood of losing muscle is higher and their ability to burn fat is going to be slower just because of, they have less muscle mass. Their hormones will be decreasing over time. Regardless, almost every natural bodybuilder ends up in a low testosterone state by the end. You're just trying to delay that as much as you can. So you don't have the issues with enhanced athlete. You basically, you have more tools in the box, You have more weapons. It's like you're going to war over here with 1 grenade and a pistol, and over here you're going to war with a few grenades, a rocket launcher, a rifle. You have a lot of things to work with. So I tend to usually have more carbohydrates higher in a enhanced athlete, and I can bring their fats down lower with good results to maintain performance. And then of course you have chemicals to assist in the whole process along the way. That's for sure. But fundamentally, they're not extremely different besides those particular situations. I mean, I first started coaching nothing but natural athletes. I have quite a few, I think I have like 17 or 18 natural pros that I've trained over the years when I first started. And that's what I first started prepping with. So that's when I first learned. And then over the years, I still have natural guys now that I help. But they need a longer period of time to diet. There's no question. You can't take 2 hours cardio a day to a natural athlete and give them low fat and diet them really hard for 12 weeks. It's just, I like to do 1 pound body fat per week for a natural athlete, but most importantly, not to get them too chubby in the off season either,
Actually, I just read a study about that, what you just said, that, a natural preparation for a competition will decrease the testosterone level. Do you think it's because of the low dietary fat intake, or is it because of the low body fat? Which one is it?
I think it's more or less related to lower calorie intake. Most of all, a dietary fat does play a role. And then obviously, of course, you have the body fat component of hormone, influence, because obviously if body fat gets too low in a female, obviously you have a whole domino effect of affecting amenorrhea, not getting periods, and they're all over the place. But men aren't as influenced by that. And of course, age and of course, body fat, but who knows exactly? But we do know it happens. We do know that fat is involved in hormone production, especially cholesterol. So I try to keep those, protected as long as I can. I feel that I've noticed a difference. I know it's anecdotal. You can't really use that. But I feel that the athletes where I was able to keep a higher fat just seem to get in shape better and feel better in a natural athlete. Because I have experimented in situations going very, very low fat and, they didn't feel very good, but they still got lean, but I mean, it's really hard to say. That's just my particular approach. And you could honestly base it just on opinion. I don't have any hard facts in determining that, you know?
I had a podcast with Bob Waterhouse, and he was on Fuad's show as well, just right after you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his name. He's from the UK, and he's the only natural IFBB pro in Classic. And he's really natural, by the way. And I had a podcast with him, and he told me that after the show, when the show was over, and he increased his fat intake, and he obviously increased his body fat level, his testosterone production was still low for a significant amount of time after the competition. That brings up the question that, is it the calorie, is it the fat intake, or is it the low body fat? Which one is it?
If I'm going to guess, I think it's the deprivation over a period of time.
The calories,
The
it's just
deprivation of calories. Yeah. I mean, think about it. You deplete your body really hard. It just goes into this ultimate metabolic adaptation survival mode, you know, tries to maintain. It's like sexual reproduction is not on the priority list.
Priority, yes, exactly. And funny enough, this is exactly what Broderick Chavez thought about this topic. Right, next question. That's going to be quite easy. Dietary questions, nutrition questions. So we mostly, with Broderick, we covered most of the question about proteins, but there's one question I just have to ask you. It might not going to be hard facts. It might just going to be your opinion. But when it comes to protein, which one is more important? What do you think? Quantity or quality or variety? So if you have to put these three in orders, how would you do that?
Only considering one at a time?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say quantity, because if you said quality, you only give me 40 grams a day, then it wouldn't work.
Yes.
Right. So I'm going to say quantity 1, 2 would be quality. And then what was the third one again? The third one you said?
Variety.
Third one, variety is whatever.
Variety.
I mean, but we're not getting a ton of micronutrients from our protein sources anyway. I know we do, but we don't need to, you know, when we can survive on chicken and then get our micronutrients from other sources. So I would say that would for sure be last.
Okay, so when you design a meal plan, just in general, how many different protein sources in your plan? Just regularly?
Oh, I give them a lot.
Attention to that.
I give them whole eggs. I give them egg whites. I give them whey protein isolate. I give them salmon. I give them ground beef, ground bison. I give them steak. I give them cod, shrimp, chicken. I give a variety because I want to increase adherence and prevent diet burnout. If it's a preparation for a show, things are different. So it would end up being more specific to whole eggs, salmon, beef, and chicken. I am not a huge advocate of turkey. I'm just not. And I don't know if it's something that we do in the States here with how they process it, but I would say a good solid 50% of people who are eating ground turkey here, just their stomachs are distended, bloated. And I can't put my finger on what's going on exactly. I have narrowed it down to a few brands that people consistently use, where Purdue tends to just blow people out. I don't know what they're doing to their meat. But when I remove that and I replace it with even ground beef and chicken, the problem goes away. So I don't know, but I'm not a huge advocate of that. I will incorporate that if we need to, but I generally tell people, just if this starts to happen, just get rid of it.
Okay, next one. That's going to be an easy one for you. The role of insulin. So when it comes to carbs, people has a lot of misunderstanding about, carbs and high carb and low carb and keto and whatever. And it all comes down to insulin. That's what people think, that the major factor in fat loss is the insulin. So what is the role of the insulin and what does it actually do? I'm talking about our own insulin production, not the exogenous insulin.
Yeah, so insulin just simply maintains helps maintain glycemic control, which is your blood sugar levels. It carries blood sugar glucose out of the blood, moves it around to your liver, stores as glycogen, stores in the muscles. But it basically, you're trying to maintain glycemic control. You're trying to be within the normal limits of your blood glucose. Your gradual postprandial rises and falls. That's what it's maintained, to maintain blood glucose. Glucagon's the opposite, where it helps raise it up. If you don't have enough food going in and blood sugar starts to go down, glucagon will raise blood sugar. But it's all about maintaining those blood glucose. That's what it's for. Now, in regards to fat loss, is that part of the question too?
Yeah.
Now, so fat loss is not about insulin. Fat loss is about being in a calorie deficit. And that's what people really don't understand exactly. Now, potentially, if you have a high free-floating insulin in the blood, is that going to inhibit fat loss? I don't know. I haven't seen that. I deal with people with polycystic ovary syndrome who have insulin resistance, and their insulin levels are very high, but I do get them to lose weight just fine. And they're still eating carbohydrates because they're in a calorie deficit. So, I mean, I understand what people's theory is with that, where if you have a high blood insulin level, you think you're going to inhibit fat loss. But at the end of the day, over a 24-hour period of time, if you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. You have to lose weight.
And what do you think? Why people call insulin as a fat storage hormone rather than a regulatory hormone? Where is this term coming from?
It's coming from the fact that, like, you know, if you have high insulin levels and you have high blood glucose, like, obviously your body's going to store the extra glucose into the fat cells because that's a calorie surplus.
That's the extra glucose, not the insulin. Yeah.
Right. It's the glucose. It's the extra excessive calorie intake that your body's disposing of, the extra. So, like, if your body's blood sugar, if your glycogen stores are full and you're having sufficient calories and you just eat tons of carbohydrates and your blood sugar is starting to go up, your insulin's going to start taking that and storing it, and it's going to store into the fat cells. If glycogen's full, liver glycogen's full, it's going to spill over to the excess, will be the fat cells, which is your energy stores. Your body sees your energy stores as like you driving a truck around with extra gas cans in the bed. It's like it's extra energy for later because it's an excess at the time. I mean, I know people, and even myself, like using exogenous insulin in preparation for a show, and they still get lean, you know, because they're in a calorie deficit. And that's even going above and beyond, you know, what's naturally occurring in your body. So to take that statement is incorrect. It's a misunderstood hormone, and people they hear insulin stores fat and then they go, wow, they attach to that one concept instead of understanding the mechanism in the body of which it works.
Exactly. So next one is a little bit more complex. So I really need to ask you to go as simple as you can on fructose, because there's a lot of misunderstanding on fructose as well, not just on insulin. And as you probably know and you've experienced as well, people started to be afraid of fruit itself. So what is actually the problem with the fructose? Is there a problem with the fructose? And if it is it coming from the fruit? There's a problem with the fruit, or it might be a different source of the fructose?
So when people hear fructose, they automatically think of fruit because they know and are aware fructose is a part of fruit fructose, but they're not aware of the high percent of fructose that's in table sugar.
Yes.
Table sugars in sodas, in muffins, and things that you guys eat, bodybuilders eat on a regular basis when they're trying to avoid fructose. They're already getting a larger amount of fructose than they even think they are with the foods they're eating. And the many people who are listening, when I say that, there are a lot of large bodybuilders who are spending a lot of their calories with sugary cereals, muffins, and other things that are just easy to digest, large calorie dense foods that are loaded with fructose, much higher than it would be eating a whole pineapple. So that's where the misconception comes in. And when people hear about how fructose, excessive fructose causes fatty liver, causes this and this, they're saying to themselves, wow, I can't eat fruit. The studies aren't done with people eating 50 pounds of bananas. People, it's that nobody's going to do that.
Or drinking pure corn syrup. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like, I think I calculated one time a 16-ounce bottle of regular soda is equivalent to about, I think, a pineapple and a half of fructose. It's like nobody's going to eat a pineapple and a half every day.
Which is about, I don't know, 3 pounds of pineapple. You can't even eat much.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is possible to get too much fructose from fruit, but you have to eat an astronomical amount of fruit every day, and that's just not going to happen. It's like when people kind of attack artificial sweeteners and they're like, oh man, that's bad stuff. It's like, do you realize they gave rats 300 times what you'd have to drink like 500 Diet Cokes a day to get what the rats were getting in those particular studies. So things get misunderstood. People read the abstract of the study. They don't look at the study totally, which I really do wish high school taught people how to read studies, because they'd understand that 50% of studies are just crap. They're just garbage. So no, that's not true. And not to mention, fruit has a much lower amount of fructose than table sugar. Most fruits do. That being said, the micronutrients and the fiber intake in fruits far outweigh the dangerous effects that the fructose is going to give you from fruit, by far. I've prepped myself on fruit. I had 50% of my calories coming from fruit in a prep. And to be honest with you, I felt like $1,000,000. I felt great. I was super energetic. My brain was sharp. And this is the other positive thing about fructose from fruit, is that it doesn't have the same impact on insulin release. So you have a better way of maintaining glycemic control than if you compared 30 carbs from white rice or 30 carbs from an orange. You're going to have better glycemic control with the orange than you are with white rice. That's another thing that's just very misunderstood. And then people are spending all this money with these synthetic vitamins and minerals to make up for what they're not getting from the foods they're avoiding, which they shouldn't be avoiding because they think they're bad for them.
Right. And as we know, carbs are protein sparing. Carbs has a protein sparing effect. Is it true for fructose as well?
I don't know that exactly. I can't say that. I honestly don't know. Carbohydrates spare glucose. Fructose has a different mechanism of absorption.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So I don't know that answer. It goes to the liver first, and then the liver decides where it's going to go to. But I can tell you, I have all my off-season guys eat fruit, and a lot. And I have never had anybody, their triglycerides, I haven't had anybody come back with hypertriglyceridemia. I didn't have anybody with hyperlipidemia come back from eating fruit ever. It's usually excessive calorie intake and carbohydrate intake that leads to that.
Right. Next one will be a bit different. So we went over all the diet questions or macronutrients questions. Now the next one, supplementation. For an average people who can't understand or can't even find the proper studies, how can you actually pick a good company? So what to look for when you are trying to choose a good company? Because this is the first thing people always ask, is this company better than that one? Is this whey protein is better than the other one? So how can you actually trust in a company? What to look for?
It's a tough one. Because some of the things I'm going to say don't always mean that they're going to be a good company. So sometimes who they sponsor, who they have represent their product, and how that person represents the product tells you a lot about
the success of the company.
No, it tells you a lot about the integrity of the company. Okay. So for example, when I first signed with Animal, they said, Chris, which of these products do you like and which ones don't you like? And I told the ones I like and which ones I don't like. And they tell me, well, why don't you like these products? And I tell them I don't like these products. And they go, Chris, if somebody asks you these products over here, would you feel comfortable recommending them if you don't like them personally? And I said, I would feel uncomfortable with that. And they said, good, because we don't want you pushing any product that you wouldn't be passionate or believe in. And I'm like, not many companies are going to do that. Most companies are going to be like, listen, I want you to make a post about this, make a post about that, and make sure you say you take this and take that, and they may not even take it. So that's it. And I've heard all these stories about some top bodybuilders not even use any of the products they're being sponsored by, and they use something else. So that's something big. The individual they're sponsoring or how they're going about representing their company. When they just target big names, that's a red flag to me. Yeah, it does bring a lot more. It does true in a marketing standpoint work because you're bringing more eyeballs to the product. And if they're there, people might look at it, try it. And if they like it, they'll continue to use it. But I always don't think that's the best practice. And the other one is manufacturing, all right, and cost. I hate to say it to people, but when protein is extremely cheap, whether it's whey isolate or not, it means that, like, if they go buy 20 tons of whey protein and it gets broken down into concentrate and isolate, and then some bags will be very pure, some might not be pure. Sometimes the leftovers go to the bottom feeder companies that can't afford it, because whey isolate cost is expensive. So the highest quality whey isolate is going to go at a higher cost, all right, of quality control, if it's damaged in transit, etc. So that's something to keep in mind. And obviously, the more they buy, the more they can sell at a cheaper rate. Now, Animal owns every single step of their whole manufacturing process. They manufacture their own supplements. 90% of supplements are all made in like 1 or 2 factories in the United States. And all companies will source their protein, their products there, and say, this is what I want in it. This is the flavor, this is the ingredients, this is what I want. And that company makes it. It's all coming from the same place. Very few companies own their own means of production. Animal has their stuff third-party tested before they do a random batch grab, and they go right to the farm, like right to the third-party testing lab, where they make sure what's on the label matches what's in the product. And when the product comes into the particular first warehouse, which is like the loading warehouse, the product gets tested for contaminants, heavy metals, etc., before it goes to the next. And then once it goes to the next, then it gets sorted. It gets tested again to make sure there's no contaminants. So high process quality controls are big, but a lot of people won't know that until they're there, you know. But don't think just cheap is the way to go, because it's not. I have people use whey isolate before from one company, and then they go to another company and use it, and they feel totally different. So like, dude, I was bloated, my stomach hurt because I picked up this brand, and then now when I do this brand, I feel great. Quality control. The label, unfortunately, doesn't always match what's in the product. It doesn't, you know?
How is that possible, by the way?
Well, in the United States, there's supplements aren't regulated by the FDA. But outside of that, FDA is the Federal Drug Association. But outside of that, there are supposed to be allow a certain percent of error, room for error. I don't remember the percent exactly, maybe 30% error on the label.
Which is a lot, by the way.
Right.
That's a lot.
Right. But when I say 30%, it's not 30% of ingredients not being listed. The ingredients have to be listed by law. It's more or less the grams of protein, the carbs, etc. But it doesn't mean you might have already kind of denatured protein or damaged protein that they're being synthesized, you know? I don't have all the answers in that regard, but they're not all equal. That's for sure. They're just not, you know?
I just come into my mind that, do you actually know how many different companies producing manufacturing creatine on the world? You know how many?
I don't know. I think it's 1 or 2, right?
3. It's
yeah,
3. So basically, if you pick 10 different creatine supplements from the shelf, that's going to be probably all the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Next one. It's going to be even tougher. How can you actually pick a good coach? Now we know how to pick a good company, but how can you actually pick a coach? I'm obviously talking about online coaching, because if you have a chance to meet person to person with the coach, then it's a lot easier. But if it's an online coaching, how can you actually make sure that the coach knows their stuff?
If a coach is posting, genetics reign supreme. So sometimes people who are genetically fit just get in shape with any type of dummy coach, okay? So you have to look at, a lot of people get attracted to some individual that looks insane who are working with a coach, which is not always a good indicator. If you see before and after pictures, and you look at the before picture and it looks like, wow, they came a long way and they didn't look like they had good genetics.
Yeah.
And you see that over and over and over again, that's great. And then maybe reach out to one of them and say, how do you like working with them? Because there's a lot more than meets the eye on social media. Social media is projected to what they want you to see. But you got to know what goes on behind the scenes. Me being a coach, and I know you being a coach, I know horror stories for freaking days on even the top coaches or the top coaches, however you want to say it. So sometimes a lot of these coaches will pay attention only to their good guys, and they won't pay attention to the small guys. I know coaches giving drugs for free to top coaches and free coaching for the top guys. So everybody else in the bottom amateur ranks will sign up with them for top dollar. That happens a lot too. So somebody who has got good communication, responds well, is personable, cares, reach out to the clients they've worked with before and the clients that left them, because it's always good to get an idea of why that person left that coach, because no coach has 100% retainment. Nobody does, right? People bounce around. That's just the name of the game. But looking closely at the pictures and other people, so if you're looking at a coach, this is a good one too. If you're looking at a coach and you're considering them, look at other people look at the people who tag him, because he might not be displaying you on his page, but look at the other people that tag him and then check with them to see how their progress is going and how they like the communication. But don't use the top guy. Just don't. That's a red flag. It just is, because what happens, this is the coach progression. I'll leave this question alone. Once you become a better coach and you start establishing better retainment, better results, better placings, you start to get a higher caliber of an athlete. Then you get higher caliber an athlete, then you get more eyeballs. Then you get more eyeballs, then you get even more of a higher caliber athlete, until eventually when you're closer to the top tier coach, you call it, 90% of your clients are all genetic freaks. And now every person you're posting looks absolutely bonkers.
Yes.
But to get there successfully, you do have to learn and know what you're doing for the most part. There's a lot of people that end up getting a gift and they get one or two guys that are just bonkers and they post them. They go, look at me, I helped this guy and he did nothing but cut out McDonald's for 2 weeks. You know,
that's why I ask you, because let's say a year ago, 100% of my clients were jam pop. Right now, I would say 30% of them are personal trainers, and of course a few of them competitors. But the reason I never post, before and after the transformation pictures, because these people has the competitor mindset. Obviously, their result will always be better than the other 80%.
Yeah,
always. And that's why I don't want to give this false picture to the people that, no, the other 90%, the other 80% is what's the most important, because these people has no competitor mindset. And that's just hard work. It's a lot harder. Well, that's what I think. It's a lot harder.
Right. And the other thing too is, if a coach has good integrity, has good communication, that reputation is going to go around. I have that reputation. I don't advertise. I have people contact me and they go, Chris, I understand people keep telling me that you're very conservative, you're very health conscious, and you have really good communication, and that's why I want to work with you. It's like, if that's what you hear, that's great. If you hear, man, he takes like 4 days to get back to me, that's no good. That's no good. Yeah. And plus, you're paying all that money. That's not good.
Yeah, right. Last two questions, Chris, because we getting close to the 1 hour limit. We agreed. First one. That's going to be quite silly question, but I'm just going to have to ask you, when you made the transition from being a dietitian to a full-time coach, how hard was that for you? Because this is the point where I'm at right now, and it's a gamble. It's a gamble anyway. And was it hard for you to give up your work and go full-time coaching?
It was scary, because obviously you're leaving a concrete set job, with benefits and everything, to having to pay for everything yourself, health insurance, 401k, retirement. And then of course, establishing your income is based on your clientele. And that could vary, where the hospital is just your straight hourly rate. This is your salary. This is what you get. You show up, come back. I never intended to me to do what I'm doing today, believe it or not. I intended just to work in the hospital. That's what happened. But over the years, the coaching business just naturally, organically grew to eventually I was making more money working 20 hours a week being a coach than I was working 40 hours a week as a dietitian. And then it started to get unmanageable. And I'm like, man, I'm working like every day, all day, and working after going home from the hospital. I'm like, I wonder if I could quit. And it was nerve-wracking, and it was, but I also live very below my means. So at the time, I knew if something happened within 6 months, I would be okay, and I would still be able to find a job again if it didn't work. Because at the time, I was living in like, I don't know, 800 square foot apartment. You know what I mean? Like everything was very low key. I had money saved. I was very smart with my money. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to do it. And then when I did it, then you're really motivated. Then I'm like, oh man, I'm going to drive this home, and then getting up early every day and then working. And then eventually grew so much more again that my wife had to quit her job and then stayed home doing all the logistics. And now she has her own clients. She's my CFO. She's my tech department. She's everything in that regard. But yeah, it was difficult, but that was the progression. It started to become like, if I just put more full time into this, I can take on more people. But it grew for a long time before I decided that was even possible.
Because the reason I asked this, because as I said, I'm at this point right now, I still have, the full-time job, but just the coaching itself takes about 40 to 50 hours a week of my time. So that gives me about 110, 120 working hours a week, which is quite a lot. And I don't really know for how long I can handle that. So my question is, and that's the last one, what do you think? What's the limit? What's the number? What's the limit of the number of your clients you can take on before the quality of your coaching goes down? Because I can actually say right now I've got 50 plus clients. And if I want to go full-time coaching, I need obviously more than that. And what do you think? How many clients you can actually handle and still give away quality coaching?
That depends on your system. That depends on the complexity of your clients. And that depends on how many hours you're willing to work, right? So if you're cranking out 100 now, I mean, I work 12-hour days, Monday through Saturday, and then a few hours on Sunday. So like, that's my limit. So whatever clients I can fit in that is what I can do. But weight loss clients take a third of the time as a competitor.
Yeah.
So 90% of my clients are weight loss clients. And then the rest are competitors. And then I have a few, obviously I have a handful of nutrition-related disease people that are more complicated, but nobody's more complicated than a contest prep. They take up so much time. And I would honestly say that's probably, I almost lose money in some sense of the word because of how much time they actually take. But the amount of clients that you can take before quality is really dependent on the individual. I've been able to handle a lot. I remember one year, actually this last year was my best year with client placings of how many overall wins I've had. And I had my client win USAs and get his pro card. And I was still moving across the country. I was doing everything and everything worked out great. Nothing was sacrificed. And I think I had about maybe, I don't know, 70 people compete over the year. And then I remember one year, my wife and I had a client show every weekend for 6 months straight. And people did well. I didn't get the most wins that year. Last year was the most wins I've had, but it was miserable. I'm not going to lie. My self-care went down the drain.
Same,
but
yeah,
my clients were number one because I had that thing in me. If I say to you, I'm going to be here at 1 o'clock today, I'm going to be here at 1 o'clock. So when a client hires me to do something, like, I'm going to make sure that I do it. And then if I can't, which I never had been able to do, I just can't take on anybody. Like right now, I can't take on anybody clients right now. I just can't because of how it's going. But that's kind of how it is, man. I know some people tolerate a lot of clients, but I don't know how anybody, like, put this, I can't prep more than 6 people per weekend. I can't. So that's my limit. So when I look at client shows, I make sure there's no more than 6 per one weekend. I just don't want that. I don't want it. It's too stressful for me. It's not worth it for me. I know people who do more and they do fine, but that's how they handle and what their system is. But for me personally, that's my cap. I can have 6 people compete every weekend, but 6 is it. That's it.
And now the very last question, Chris. I'm sorry about that. I just have to.
No worries.
That's a very last one, because this is the most interesting question to me personally. Do you get stressed out of these number of clients, and how do you deal with the anxiety and stress you're getting from the coaching? Because it's stressing. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of responsibility. And how do you deal with that? Because this is my biggest challenge. Just on a side note, I've got ADHD, and it's very hard for me to turn off my brain at the end of the day. And I worry about a lot of stuff I shouldn't. So how do you deal with this? How do you deal with the anxiety coming from your work?
I'm not going to lie. It's tough. You talk to my wife about it. I vent to her about it. Coaching's tough. Coaching's tough if you care. If you're a coach that gives a shit, you're going to have nights of sleep where you don't get good sleep. You're going to be anxious. If you're a coach that doesn't give a crap, then you'll probably be fine. But me personally, like, I struggle with it sometimes. And honestly, it comes down to situations, right? Where we go back to October, November, December, everything was great. My clients were crushing it. Things were just falling in place. Win after win after win. You make a change, the change results in what you want. Everything's great. And then fast forward to this month, I got my clients getting ready for March and April, and I got some people that are a little slower progressing, and things aren't clicking like I want them to click, and it gets stressful. So like now I'm just like, man, this is tough, because I got to take back and look very carefully. But to manage that, I really try to live in the moment, meaning I look at the number of emails I have and I'm like, wow, it's a lot. And I'm not going to get frustrated about that. I'll go, well, let's look at this email. Okay. All right.
Just one by one.
One by one. And then just go down, and just keep driving. People like to see progress in their effort. And when there's no progress in their effort, that's when you get frustrated, right?
Yes.
It's like, say, perfect example, like on a busy day for me, I might be on the email for 6 hours straight, but still be at email 40, right? It's like, it's not going down because people are replying. Things are coming back. Things are going back.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but I just try to be in the moment, and that's it. And then I have to take my physical breaks. It's like, after this, I'm going to go for a walk with my dog. Leave my phone at home. I got to clear my mind and get into nature, because you get so into go, you don't end up taking your own self-care.
Yes.
Man, at the end of the night, right? At the end of the night, my phone will be off. I won't even look at it. And then I'll be with my wife, with my dogs. We might watch Netflix and that. Like, but it is tough, man. It is tough. And I've gotten better. I mean, I look back at when I first started coaching way back, I was stressed out with 4 clients, and here I am, like, well over 100, and I'm okay. And there's days where I'm like, man, this is tough. But most of all, it's manageable because I've learned a different mental strategy and how to approach it. Right.
So that's a progression as well, because
but it's a progression if you want to improve mentally.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, that's just how I am. That's just how I am. I think that's bullshit, right? It's like, we might be anxiety driven people because we got that from our parents. But like, I might look at my mom and be like, man, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to react like that. So like, over time, I learned to like take this in stride, because I get empowered by other people who can go through a stressful situation and think clearly and act rationally. I'm like, I want to be like that guy. I'm like, that dude's under more stress than I've ever seen in my life. And this dude's just cruising, because he's like all this chaos around him. But yet he's like, this is problem A, problem B, problem C. I'm starting with problem A, fixed. Problem B, fixed. And then you're on to the next thing. Like, I want to compartmentalize each problem one at a time and learn to keep those emotions at bay, because I want to be a better person too, right? I want to be able to handle more and more. But I have a problem, like, it's almost like a competitive thing in my own mind. when I see other people able to handle so much, I'm like, mentally, I can change. I can't dunk a basket because I'm only 5'9", but that I can't change. But I can change and learn how to manage anxiety, right? So that's kind of the things the tactics I've used over the years to constantly improve that, you know? But regardless, it's always tough. And I tell people,
it always will be. Yeah.
It always will be, because what happens is the threshold just gets greater and greater.
Yes, correct.
Because if you're like, man, 40 clients stresses me out, and then all of a sudden you're better, I can take 50. And then you're at 50 and you're like, man, I'm stressed out, because you are getting better, but your threshold's getting better because you're constantly pushing the limits.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. A year ago, it was 20, and I always said I cannot do more than 20. That's my limit. And then it became 30. Now it's over 50. So I just wanted to know what's your limit, because it's almost like I needed your answer just to get motivated for the future.
Yeah, I'm at my limit now. I am. And if somebody falls off, I might contact somebody to see if they want, if somebody say, hey, I'm all done for the year, and somebody wants to come on, I might swap that on. But I'm at my limit, because at some point I think it's not worth it, because there's still things in my life I want to enjoy. And if I'm working all of the time, and then the day that I have time is just taking care of house chores, like I can't take my wife to go do something cool, because at the end of the day, we're getting older, right? It's like we've lived a lot, we've done a lot, but I got to have some type of life myself. And it's very easy to get caught up with helping people, but you can't put yourself dead last 100% of the time. You know?
Cool. Chris, that was amazing. And I think we can call it a day with this answer, because this is just the perfect finish of this podcast. So thanks everyone for watching this. And Chris, thank you very much for being here. This is amazing. And for the very first time, I actually kept the time limit for this video.
No worries, man. No worries at all.
Right. So from